Not, folks. We're working on the technology piece. So here we are on YouTube, and we're getting ready to go on live on Facebook. Maybe by next week we'll have it all synced together to where we are online right when we start. But for now, I'm going to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll get notifications when we shoot these videos and when we put them up online. And I'll recommend that you also like us on Facebook. That way you'll get notifications on Facebook. This way you get two different ways to know what's going on and get this information that you can either utilize in your own life, in your family's life, or share with other people. And that's what we see a lot is, I was just talking with someone today. Someone made a recommendation. They had overheard a conversation up front about a chronic condition that they suffered with, and they said, this really helped. This therapy really helped me, and it's really the sharing of information in a grassroots way that's going to make healthcare change for us. So, like I said, if you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go ahead and do that now. And if you haven't liked us on Facebook yet, please go ahead and do that. So, the Facebookers who are going to be live, watching us live in just a minute, will have to catch on board. But last week we talked about, is chiropractic good for kids? And resoundingly, the answer is yes, is the really short answer. The slightly expanded answer is chiropractic, just like anything else, is good when it's appropriate. Now, the nice thing is that really everyone can benefit from chiropractic care, because chiropractic care's focus is on enhancing brain-body connection, really optimal neural system function. And so with chiropractic, anyone who has a functioning nervous system that could see that improve can benefit from chiropractic care. And so, when we talk about chiropractic care, there's, there's kind of the good, better, best. And good is if you're having things like mechanical low back pain or neck pain. Chiropractic is a great, safe, effective, non-invasive intervention to help alleviate things like mechanical neck pain, back pain, etc. Better is if we can not only give a natural treatment for this, but actually restore function in a meaningful way to where we've actually corrected the problem. And then the best really is to not only correct a problem, but prevent it from happening in the future. And the icing on that cake is, we're all getting older and we age chronologically, but in terms of turning back the clock physiologically, that's where things like chiropractic are used. And that's where, athletes use chiropractic for performance enhancement, not so much to recover from injuries, but really for performance enhancement to get that extra edge. Because, like Tom Brady isn't necessarily using his chiropractor to treat arm injuries, neck injuries, but to get, that clarity and vision, thinking, reflex time. By the way, are we live on Facebook? We are not live on Facebook yet. I don't know what's going on. Well, I'll just keep talking because that's what I do. So we may not actually end up going live on Facebook, but we are recording this, which is going to go onto YouTube. So worst case scenario, it'll go out on YouTube. And maybe what we can do, if that's the case, is put a YouTube link on our Facebook page so that we won't actually be live here, but we'll still get the content of this video out. What is the content of this video now that I've had a 5-minute preamble to it? It is how can chiropractic help kids? Well, there's kind of the mechanism of it, and then there's, what conditions or what situations or what populations among children would benefit from chiropractic care and how. So, if we look at from birth through our end of our adolescence, there's lots that we can give different subsets of populations, and for each subset of population, there are different challenges at those ages. So, right at birth, even the most ideal natural birth is fairly traumatic. Your head is being compressed through a small canal, and for a lot of kids, particularly, even under the most ideal circumstances, there's going to be torque and tension on the neck, which can create subluxations, areas really at the very top of the neck, the way our head sits on our neck, right from birth, can be a challenge. And that's why infants, particularly newborns, I think are the most underserved population when it comes to chiropractic. And really, the beautiful thing is that usually 1, 2, 3 at the most adjustments is going to correct that subluxation. And kids are highly adaptable, particularly as we're in our infancy. We are changing and growing every single day. So we incorporate new information, just like whatever bacteria we put in our mouth, whatever language we hear, whatever vibration we feel. It's like our brain is just a sponge. And the same thing is the case in terms of like reorganizing how our nervous system presents. So infants are probably the most underserved population when it comes to chiropractic and respond most instantaneously to chiropractic. I'll say that here in Ithaca, we have 2 practitioners that really specialize in perinatal care as well as treating infants. I'm not one of them, but I do see infants, and usually what I do is I will assess, and if it's really anything beyond 1 or 2 visits, I will refer out to those other practitioners because that's the main population they see. That's what their expertise is at. So while I'm happy to check out kids here, particularly, while I'm happy to check out infants, the nice thing is we have resources with a couple of wonderful practitioners here in Ithaca that I would point somebody to if they're having some issues. For example, cranial bones not coming together, coming together asymmetrically. That's something that, again, like Dr. Van Loon is terrific at. And, so the first thing is really assessing that there's an issue, and then there's treating it. And I can assess with some degree of confidence. But again, anything beyond like really basic, I would refer to the expert. But that's a hugely underserved population, infants. And, by the time we're 2 years old, I think it's something like we've fallen on our butt 10,000 times. You think that might alter spinal alignment? Yes. So, there's different, in terms of if there's issues, typically it is in infancy, it's going to be things like trouble latching, breastfeeding issues, colic, difficulty with elimination. These are all things that if it's a chiropractic issue, which it isn't always, but if it is, chiropractic's the best intervention there. And it's going to really be very immediate in terms of response. And that's what, even 6 months into practice, there was a 6-month-old that I was seeing who was not eliminating properly and hadn't eliminated, hadn't had a bowel movement in 10 days. And, the nice thing about treating infants too is it's like literally about the same pressure as you would squeeze a tomato to see if it's ripe or not. That's about how much pressure we use with an infant. So obviously I'm not going to treat an infant the same way I would treat a 32-year-old power lifter, 2 different bodies, 2 different presentations. So things like chronic recurrent ear infections is another thing. If there's an ear infection that keeps reoccurring and you've had 2, 4, 6 rounds of antibiotics, obviously you're treating the result of the problem, but the problem in and of itself may be poor drainage. And before going and getting tubes, certainly bringing your kid to a chiropractor would be a great idea, because the way that our head sits on our neck should allow for drainage out through the outer ear and from the middle ear back to back down through down our throat. And so treating, we're not really treating ear infections. We're treating a condition called subluxation, which would, if uncorrected, can lead to things like recurrent ear infections. It doesn't cause the ear infection, but will not allow our bodies to, self-correct and drain, so that you have this pooling of material that is ripe for viral or bacterial infection. So, things like ear infections, colic, trouble latching, constipation, things like that. In infancy, certainly as we're getting older, there are, like I said, a kid's going to fall down some 10, 20,000 times before they're, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So, and then there are different landmarks, going from, when you start to crawl, we're using our bodies differently. We start to lift our head differently. When we start to stand, when we start to walk, these are all different milestones where it's great to have your kid checked, so that we make sure that as you're growing, you're growing straight, you're growing functionally. And then as we move into preschool and early school, early elementary school years, I recommend, just like you take your kid to the dentist twice a year, bring them to the chiropractor anywhere between 1, 2, 4 times a year. I like quarterly, just because a lot happens in our kids' lives. And so just getting checked quarterly every 3 months, just like you go to the dentist every 6 months, you get your oral hygiene checked. Here would be a good case to get your spinal hygiene checked. And if there is an issue, it's better to catch it early, correct it, so that it doesn't become a bigger problem. And then as your kids go into middle school, and even with the technology that we have, that everyone's got Chromebooks and tablets and what have you, I mean, most kids in middle school, and by the time you get to later in middle school and high school, their backpacks weigh more than they do half the time. So that's going to lead to those same problems that we as adults have sitting at the computer, except for these kids, their spines are still growing, their nervous systems are still developing, their spinal movement is an engine for brain function, creative thought, higher levels of thinking. So it's not just a physical issue, but if we're having to draw from other parts of our brain just to keep ourselves up, then we're going to lose some of that creative thought, higher level of thought as well. So as we develop into pre-adolescence and adolescent years, it's a lot of the same things that adults have: sports injuries, postural issues. But because they're still developing, it's the best time to address the issue, because if we don't, then they're developing in a dysfunctional way, and it will lead to a lifetime of dysfunction and eventually disability if it's not corrected. So a whole lot of things that chiropractic can help with. I think really the bottom line is, it's easy for me to say this as a chiropractor, but it makes perfect sense. And in 5 minutes, I'm not going to be able to relay everything that I know about how chiropractic benefits kids. But I think really the bottom line is it makes a lot of sense to have, for really each individual, to get checked at least annually by a chiropractor, but certainly your kids as they're growing, like I said, 1, 2, 4 times a year for regular checkups. And then if there is an issue, you correct the issue, and then we can go on to your next checkup. Us as adults, by the time most adults get to a chiropractic office, we're talking about 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of dysfunction. And yes, the nice thing is we can correct a lot of that in a much shorter period of time, but there's kind of a ceiling of how far we can get depending on what level of damage there is. And we are not able to retrain our nervous systems as well as kids can. Just like I talked about last week, trying to learn a sport, learn how to hit a baseball for the first time at 40 years old is a lot harder than learning to hit a baseball for the first time at 5 years old. Same thing with learning a language, and same thing with learning how our body should hold themselves. So if you haven't, this is a great time now that we're in summer, school's out. Bring your kid to get checked out, whether it's in our office. We'd love to check out your kids, and this is an opportunity we recommend for all of our practice members. But also, if you're not involved in our practice here, but you see a chiropractor or need a recommendation for a chiropractor, either here in Ithaca or in your town if you're watching remotely, we'd love to get you set up there. Again, whether it's in our office or elsewhere, we just want to see us and you partner on being a part of the solution in terms of healthcare, preventing problems, addressing them in a really non-invasive and economical way before lots of problems develop in the future. So thank you for watching this video. Please comment below, ask questions, let us know what questions you want answered, what topics you want to hear about, and we'll answer those. And if you haven't liked our Facebook page yet, go ahead and do that. That way you'll get notifications when we go live on Facebook. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this now, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notifications as well. Thanks, and I will look forward to seeing you next week at our usual time, which is Thursday, 1:30 Eastern time, right here, live on Facebook and then on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and please be part of the conversation.